Today, we have with us one of Maharashtra's top cops. He is currently serving as the Additional Director General of Police for Law and Order and also for Planning and Coordination for the state of Maharashtra. He fought the Naxalites in his capacity as the Additional Superintendent of Police Anti-Naxalite Action Plan in Chandrapur. He was also the Additional Commissioner of Police Maharashtra during one of Mumbai's darkest days, 26/11. And he also served as an international police officer in the United Nations in Kosovo. He has been awarded the Police Medal by the President of India for distinguished service, the Special Duty Medal for service in harsh conditions in Gadchiroli, the Internal Security Medal for service in an insurgency-affected area, and the UN Medal for peacekeeping in Kosovo. What challenges did he face with the Naxalites? What are his varied experiences in his career? And what are the challenges he faces every day as being in charge of law and order of India's richest state is what all we are going to discuss today in my podcast. It's going to be an extremely exciting episode with Sunil Ramanand, so make sure you watch till the end and quickly hit the subscribe button before you do. So thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if I mentioned to you, my father served as a security officer of the ordnance factory in Chandrapur. And he was very, I won't say familiar, but he was there when that area was a hotbed of Naxalites. And you've received a special duty medal by the president and an internal security medal as well for dealing specifically with the Naxalites. So, do you believe it's the biggest problem after the cross-border sponsored terrorism? Do you believe it's the biggest problem?
It's a major problem. And states like Chhattisgarh, Chhattisgarh, I must say, is doing very well. And I'll just very quickly explain to you what it is in layman.
Please.
Now, the Naxalites, we call them Maoists now. They will call Naxalites post-2004. It's the same. The nomenclature has changed. There are two things to their ideology. Number one, they do not believe in democracy. And number two, they do not believe in the Constitution of India. So what is their objective? They want to wage a war with the state, with arms, overthrow the state and capture power. That is the ideology.
So this entire Robin Hood idea is wrong.
No. Not at all. Now, they derive inspiration / ideology from Mao of China, who's written a book called On Guerrilla Warfare. And in that particular book, he exhorts his follower not to have a conventional war with the state, but to have what we call an asymmetric warfare.
Okay.
Typically, when the enemy is strong, retreat.
Okay.
When the enemy camps, harass. And when the enemy is weak, attack. So now what had happened is, the first engagement between the police forces of Maharashtra and the Naxalites took place in 1980. I think it was the 2nd of November in Sironcha Taluka of Gadchiroli. There's a place called Moyabin Page, where Peddi Shankar and his band of Naxalites armed with weapons, they crossed over from Andhra and challenged the police. So there was an exchange of fire, and Peddi Shankar was neutralized in that particular exchange of fire. So that was the first one. Then the Maharashtra police, Gadchiroli police in particular, raised a commando force called C60, Crack 60 Commandos.
Okay.
They performed very well. In 2004, there was a merger of the various factions of Naxalites, who then re-christianed themselves as CPI Maoists. And around 2007-8, there were some very serious ambushes by Naxalites in which we lost, several policemen were martyred. So that was when it was decided to sort of, revamp the structure of the department there. So a post was created called DIG Gadchiroli. So DIG Gadchiroli was to handle Gadchiroli and Gondia, which were
hotbeds.
Yeah. And I was the first DIG of Gadchiroli.
Okay.
I served there for 3 years. And over a period of time, the police forces, the Gadchiroli police in particular, has been doing extremely well. And I mean, they need a pat on the back. The operations are happening in a textbook manner. And most important of all, the corridor, the easternmost corridor abutting Chhattisgarh, where there is a place called Abujmar. It's a huge forest-like place where the Naxalites retreat. So we have also been able to establish many posts along the border, and now the area domination engagements are happening in a very textbook manner. And very recently, in fact, in last year itself, we were able to neutralize 24 Maoists, some of whom were hardcore members, I mean senior cadres also. So Maharashtra police is doing very well. Chhattisgarh police too is doing very well. There are engagements in the forests of in the Abujmad area as well as the southern portions, and there is a sense of confidence that very soon, a date cannot of course be, I mean, very soon the problem will be, I mean, not just brought under control, but eliminated altogether.
Completely.
The other thing is, on account of very successful, dynamic, bold, and ambitious operations in Gadchiroli, now the district has witnessed a lot of progress.
Okay.
The Surjagarh mines has now started functioning.
Okay.
And the quality of iron ore there is possibly one of the best in the country.
Okay.
So now people are also getting employment. The
Okay.
tribals are getting employment. So the future looks very good.
Okay, that's good to hear. There's something else I've seen in your previous interviews as well. Like, most people are aware of the army and the police, but there are a lot of other paramilitary divisions, if one can put it, whom possibly you've had to work together with, perhaps BSF or whatever. So do the various divisions come together to combat a problem like this? Like you mentioned, a IF officer stepped in during one of your
I will
operations.
quickly explain to you.
Right.
And very quickly explain the role of the Indian police service. Now, the Indian police service or the officers of the service do not really belong to any state per se. What I mean here is this service has been created to have police leaders that would head all police organizations.
Okay.
So the BSF is also headed by an IPS officer.
Okay.
So is the CRPF.
Okay.
So is the SSB.
Okay.
So is the ITBP. All state and central armed police forces, including the CBI, the IB, all these forces are headed by IPS officers.
Okay.
So what happens is, since the state police forces also an IPS headed by an IPS officer and these CAPFs as we call them, there is a lot of synergy.
Okay.
Yeah. And see, more often than not, people mistake the CRPF and the BSF for the army.
Yes.
But it's not the army.
Okay.
It's under the Home Department, and it is a central armed police force.
Okay.
And they are working in tandem with the state police force. And joint operations are being carried out in Maharashtra, in Chhattisgarh, and elsewhere. And they are doing very well together. So there is synergy, yes, very much.
Okay.
In Maharashtra, we have, I believe, 4 or 5 battalions of this Central Reserve Police Force deployed in Gadchiroli at 5 locations, and plus there are some other units too. So joint patrols are carried out, and very successful operations also take place jointly.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there is immense coordination and synergy.
All right. All right. That's really informative for us, because even I did not know that whether these battalions were army or police or
Central Armed Police Forces, all headed by IPS officers.
Okay. Okay. All right. So when we started off, you spoke about what a challenge it is for the police, especially in today's changing times, right? One of the biggest challenges is organized crime. So when you say organized crime, do you mean the underworld, like the media likes to call it, or what do you mean by organized crime, and how do you face it?
I'll explain this to you. In the post-independence era, Mumbai witnessed a lot of organized crime, particularly smuggling, most of which happened at the docks. So there was the three names come to the fore: Haji Mastan, Karim Lala, and Varadaraj. The initial phase wherein they were more into smuggling. But then later on, they started diversifying into n number of activities: cricket betting, this, that, and the other. So from smuggling. The next generation was that of Dawood Ibrahim. And so forth. Now, once again, the police then invoked the IPC and the regular sections of law, but that was not strong and potent enough to contain them. So things were literally, there would be, shootout between gangsters for dominance, to control areas, to control activities. And the only other weapon that legal weapon the police had was to use preventive detention laws, which did help, but not to a very great extent. Now, talking about preventive detention laws, India is possibly the only democracy in the world in which preventive detention is permitted.
Okay.
Preventive detention means detention without trial.
Okay.
And that is in our constitution. It's a constitutional provision. There's an article, I think it's 22, which allows the state to enact preventive detention laws. You must have heard of MISA, but I'll not talk about it. In the year 1990, the NSA, Rasuka they call it in Hindi, the National Security Act, a Preventive Detention Act was enacted, under which the authorities had the power to detain a person based on the apprehension that he would act in a manner in future which would be prejudicial to the maintenance of public order, not for a crime.
Okay. Potentially.
Yeah, the apprehension gave them. So that was a strong law. But even then, it couldn't be contained much. It went on. Now, here came the game changer. In 1985, TADA was enacted. Now, TADA was a very strong law, but liable to be misused. TADA had a provision that if anyone is found with a firearm in a notified area, Mumbai was a notified area, then TADA could be invoked. Now, once invoked and arrested, the criminal found it very difficult to get bail. So he spent a long time in jail. Simultaneously, for the very first time, a provision was inserted in a law which was that a confession made to a police officer was admissible as evidence in the court of law. Under no other law is a confession made to a police officer admissible as evidence. No.
Really?
No, it is not admissible as evidence.
Okay.
Section 25 and 27 of the then Indian Evidence Act, which has now been repealed. Now we have the BSA. So if you recall, Sanjay Dutt's confession was also recorded and it was admissible 1993 last case. Now, so TADA was a very strong law, and gangsterism came under substantial control. But then TADA also was a law that was very greatly criticized for being misused.
Okay.
So what happened is eventually in 1995, I suppose, the central government allowed instead of extending the law, it was
a short-term
law, which had an expiry date. So they kept on extending the law, whereas eventually in 1995 it was not. I mean, it was not extended. So that was the end of TADA. And the moment this happened, Mumbai suddenly witnessed a lot of extortion and killings.
Yes.
Bhushan Kumar, Mr. Datta Samant, then the Wahid of the so
East
many,
West Ella,
Sunit Khatao. So there were shootouts and galore and there was a lot of fear and things came to such a head that, you get a car home and you get an extortion call. It was said then that, uh, uh, you could get any hireling gunda, 5,000 rupees and a weapon, and he would carry out the execution. It was getting literally out of hand. So that was also an era in which the NSA was being extensively used, and there was a law called MPDA, which also empowered the police to detain, and it is a preventive detention law. So a new term called dangerous persons was also inserted in it, so as to act against extortionists. But even that wasn't enough to contain the situation, and that was a period when a lot of in common parlance, it's called encounter. That is engagement between the police, in gunfight between the police. So a lot of gunfights took place, and suddenly there was a petition in the Bombay High Court in case of one particular engagement at Ballard Pier in South Bombay. The petitioner's mother said that the alleged gangster who had been killed in the engagement was her son Abu, who was a peanut vendor at some railway station. I think Charni Road. He's my son Abu, and he sells peanuts at the railway station. Why has he been killed? I mean, he's not a gangster. The police version was that no, he is not Abu. He is Javed Thawda. Thawda because he had buck teeth.
Okay.
So Thawda, Marathi Thawda. So he's Javed Thawda. What Javed Thawda? He's Abu. So eventually the High Court assigned this particular inquiry to the Principal Session Judge Agyar. It's a very interesting report. So he has invoked Shakespeare in it. He says, what is in a name?
As long as
Rose would always be a rose, but nonetheless, it's getting difficult to identify this person. So then these engagements also stopped, and there was a lull, and it was a strongly worded report that was submitted by the Principal Session Judge to the High Court, but the High Court did not accept that report. It was then that the government sort of realized that a very strong law is indeed needed to contain extortions and organized crime and gangsterism. And it was then that in the year 1999, I think it is the 24th of February 1999, that the Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act was enacted and notified. Now, the MCOCA, some call it MOCA, some call it MCOCA. Now, this act also was to some extent modeled on TADA.
Okay.
Under MCOCA, confession made to a police officer was made admissible in the courts of law as evidence. Stringent provisions were inserted therein in the respect of bail. So getting bail wasn't easy under MCOCA. Plus, there were checks and balances introduced in it, so as to prevent its misuse. In order to apply MCOCA to any case, the prior approval of an officer of the rank of at least a DIG was necessary. So without DIG's prior approval, we could not apply it. And in order to prosecute post investigation, that is to forward the case to the court, a sanction for prosecution by an officer of the rank of Additional Director General of Police was essential. So on account of these provisions did go a long way in ensuring that the law is not misused. So the law has survived. It is still on static. Not only has it survived, this has been adopted by many states. Delhi adopted it, calling it MCOCA. Delhi, Gujarat. It's there in many states now, and it has been hailed as an excellent piece of legislation to control and combat organized crime. After the enactment of MCOCA, we had some very fabulous and fantastic results in terms of
controlling
by prosecute. No gun battle in streets. So excellent prosecutions, many cases registered, checks and balances, and then suddenly uh, the organized crime scenario changed. Not only in Mumbai, elsewhere, Pune, Nagpur, and now it is absolutely under control. So hats off to Mumbai.
You have also served as the IG for the CID. So, what is the difference in the work profile there and that as a cop? And is it more difficult or complex cases to handle? And what were the biggest challenges there?
I'll explain to you. See, the CID is the CBI of Maharashtra.
Okay.
Now, unlike executive police, the CID merely investigates. The CID does not maintain order.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you go to a police station, the police station officer and the staff, they do investigate. They investigate offenses, but they also have to maintain order, processions, rallies, Ganesh Utsav, this, that, and the other. But the CID merely investigates cases like the CBI. Now, which are the cases that the CID investigates? Well, the CID, barring one particular area which I'll explain later, the CID does not have power to suo motu
Arrest or
no, pick up cases from any unit and investigate.
Okay.
It is for the Director General of Police Maharashtra or the government of Maharashtra and also High Courts and Supreme Courts that can hand over investigations from a field unit to the CID. So the CID, in other words, investigates only those cases which are handed over by A, the Director General of Police, B, or the state government, or C, High Courts or Supreme Court.
So why would they be handed over? Because they're too...
Now, I'll come to that too. The only cases which the CID has to investigate without formal orders happen to be cases, custodial death cases.
Okay.
Whenever anyone dies in custody, police custody, then the case is taken up by the CID under a general order. So he doesn't have to seek permission in every single case. Now, generally, cases which are very complex in nature, cases the ambit of which spans over several districts or maybe several states, complex economic offenses, offenses which whip up a lot of public scrutiny. Those are generally the kind of offenses that that are handed over to the CID by these authorities. But the authorities have all the powers under the sun to hand over whichever case they want. So once the case is handed over to the CID, then the local police station loses jurisdiction, and it's for the CID then to investigate and go ahead with the prosecutions. I served in the CID for 2 years, and it was a very enriching experience. See, I very pompously, prior to joining the CID, believed that I knew a lot of law and investigation, but that was not the case. It was only, see, as an IPS officer, an IPS officer doesn't investigate. He merely supervises.
Okay.
The investigation is done by juniors like sub-inspectors, inspectors, and head constables.
Okay.
But there in the CID, every single investigation and every single case has to be routed through the IG, the additional DG to the courts. So I had to study every single case put up before me, and I learned a lot.
So is it possible for you to talk about anything that was part of your purview when you were in the CID?
See, I also happened to handle quite a few custodial death cases, one of which took place in Sangli, if you remember.
Okay.
That was a very serious custodial death case there. The person arrested died in police custody, and if you recall, the offenders, essentially policemen, they whisked away the dead body to Ratnagiri and they burnt it in a forest. So that case was investigated by the CID, and Mr. Ujjwal Nikam was appointed the prosecutor for the case. The trial is on in Sangli right now.
Okay.
And so that was a very harrowing case, and the investigation was completed in stipulated time period, and the charge sheet was forwarded to the court. So that was one case that I would like to quote. I'd like to slightly digress and tell you something else now. The CID is not just about investigations.
Okay.
The CID also handles what is called the CCTNS. Now, I'll tell you what it is all about. See, very recently, in fact, in the year 2024, the Parliament of India enacted three new laws. The BNSS, the BNS, and the BSA to replace the old IPC, CRPC, and the Evidence Act, which were the cornerstone of these were the laws we depended upon for our police investigations and other. Now, a lot of changes have been brought about. The most important feature of the BNSS, and BSA is that it incorporates the use of technology for investigation, which was missing then.
All right.
A new app has been launched, which is called e-Saksh, which the IOs are expected to download on their devices. And now a lot of importance and weightage has been given to e-evidence, that is electronic evidence, in terms of electronic photography, videography of this scene of offense. And once he downloads and uses the e-Saksh app, then the scene of crime is geotagged, and whatever he uploads, it goes to a server there. So that takes care of the integrity of the evidence collected. In the past, the old laws, like the officer would draw Panchanama. Now, what is the Panchanama? You're supposed to call two people from the neighborhood and then prepare a document, ask them to sign, and they were supposed to come and depose in the courts of law. A very archaic kind of a thing. With e-Saksh, I think e-Saksh is the game changer.
Wow.
Yes. And a lot of emphasis has been given to technology, particularly e-technology. Now, the other important thing is where CID comes into picture is now all the pillars of the criminal justice system are being interconnected through what we call the ICJS. So what are the pillars of the criminal justice system? Police, prisons, courts, prosecutions, and forensic science labs. So they will all be integrated. They can access each other's data, and they can be in communication online. So now what is going to happen is, earlier charge sheets, we would carry a bunch of papers and give it to the court. Now these would be e-uploaded. So now we are going paperless.
Okay.
So the service of summons is also soon going to be paperless.
Wow.
So there is elimination of papers, integration of the criminal justice system, e-Saksh for the IOs to do investigate in a very facile manner and upload electronic documents to the server, and there will be no issues of integrity. So this is what these three laws have brought about, which is a very, very welcome change, and
Yes.
not only brought about, there is continuous monitoring from the central government as to the progress made.
Wow.
Whether these laws are being enforced in the right earnest. So that is also one thing. The other important thing that I would like to point out here is that a lot of emphasis has been laid on use of forensics in investigation. Forensics essentially means solving legal problems using specialized knowledge, like specialized knowledge in science, in medicine, in ballistics, so on and so forth. So now, in a matter of 5 years, every subdivisional police officer and DCP will have forensic vans. There are some right now, but then they have given us a period of 5 years. The law itself says so. And whenever a serious offense is committed, this van will rush to the scene. And as they do in the West, the scene is cordoned off,
Right.
and it is the technical person. See, previously the policeman would collect samples, but it is the technical person who would collect samples, look for fingerprints, this, that, and the other, and the forensics, the forensic science department and their van would buttress police investigations in a manner which has never happened before. So that is also very welcome. Now, other new things that have been factored in is the concept of zero FIR.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. For example, I'll give practical examples to illustrate my point. Say you board a train at Delhi with a bag. You get down in Bombay and your bag is missing. So if you go to a police station, this was the past when zero FIRs were not formally in existence as a part of the procedural code. So you go to say Bombay Central Station and say कि मेरी bag गुम हो गई मुझे FIR देना है. The first thing will ask you, where did you lose it? Was it Bhopal? Was it Agra? So they have jurisdiction. So you'll have to go there. Now the rule is, regardless of jurisdiction, you can get your case registered in any police station. For example, an offense takes place in, say for example, a person is robbed while he's on a bus in Pune. He gets down at Bombay and goes to a police station. So they will register his case with the number 0 and they'll forward it to Pune. So you don't really have to travel to Pune now to register an FIR.
Okay.
So that is another very, very, very important provision. The other provision herein is the concept of e-FIR. So now, without going to the police station, if you give an FIR online, then it will be entertained provided you go and sign the paper within 3 days.
Okay.
So this is also a very important provision that they have incorporated, and it is the CID now that is supposed to overlook and ensure that all of these things are done quickly and promptly, and there is a continuous
process
going on and monitoring too from the center. So this is also something the CID is doing right now.
It's so heartening to see the police force keeping step to step with all the progress because of technology. Since you're now dealing with new age criminals, the police is also new age. It's so heartening to hear this.
It's now a given that a policeman cannot shy away from technology. He has to embrace technology.
But it's nice to see the new laws coming in.
And what is more heartening here is that the younger generation, including constables, they are fairly techno-savvy and they are enjoying it and they're liking it and they're doing it. So that's very heartening, and that's a giant leap, I must say.
And also you've given us a lot of information which I'm sure the common person does not know. Right. I did not know about zero FIRs or about e-FIRs. It is really heartening to see that. And I want to go a little bit back in time here. You also served as the IG of prisons, right? And you have combated COVID while you had this responsibility. So how did you cope with it in such a densely populated prisons that we have today?
I joined the prisons department as its head in April 2019. And it was early 2020 that COVID cases were being reported in India.
The first ones, yes.
So, frankly speaking, to be brutally honest, I became a little nervous because how do I handle prisons in case something happens there? In the interim, several petitions were filed in the Honorable Supreme Court of India to take for issuance of directions to states to take steps to ensure that the prisoners aren't harmed on account of COVID. So I had to go to Delhi to file an affidavit, and I think this was March 21st, 22nd, I'm not very sure about the date. The Supreme Court constituted a high power committee in every single state to be headed by the second senior most judge of the High Court, the Home Secretary and head of the Prisons Department, to find ways and means to decongest prisons and take necessary steps to ensure that the inmates, now we don't call them prisoners, we call them inmates, and we don't call it prisons. Now from now on we call it correctional institutions and inmates.
Okay.
because the philosophy is this in modern day democracies. There's a statement I'm going to make. You have to listen to it very carefully. One goes to prisons, a correctional home. One goes to a correctional home as punishment and not for punishment.
What would be the difference?
The difference is this, that as a punishment, he's sent to the prison. Had it been for punishment, then what it would mean is that after getting in there, he'll be punished.
Okay.
As a punishment, not for punishment. So that is the gospel that we follow. It's called the correctional philosophy. That is reformation of the inmate. Not punishing him per se, but to reform him. Of course, he's in the prison, so he's incarcerated. So now the HPC was formed, and then it was decided that those of them with lesser offences should be released on either bail if he's an under trial, or COVID parole in case he is a convict. Now, so initially, no case was reported the first month or so. So I devised a novel idea. What I said is, lockdowns were being announced and curfews were being imposed. So what I talked to my prisons officer. I said, what if we do this? You collect all your rations, everything, and shut the prison and stay inside. That way there is a strong possibility that the COVID may not enter, because if there is no contact with the outside world. So we locked down several prisons. So the officers stayed inside with ration and everything, nobody coming out, and it did help. So we could prolong it for a month. Now what happened is the very first case of COVID in prisons was reported in Arthur, and there was panic. Now, one thing I must state here, if you compare our correctional homes with the ones abroad, our inmates are better behaved than their counterparts in America. And in America, you can't put two inmates in a cell.
They have a
They will fight.
Okay.
They'll start fighting.
Okay.
Now, many prisons in Europe, I believe it was Italy and some other countries, that witnessed prison riots when COVID. They scaled the walls of the prison.
To believe.
Nothing of that sort happened here. So the first case was reported there. And then I spoke with the municipal commissioner in Mumbai and also my home minister. And the Honorable CM also I spoke, and I told him that we have to very, very urgently now issue a notification in respect of release of inmates. We call it COVID parole. So then the notification was issued, and I was able to decongest prisons, release temporarily, of course, this is not permanent, temporarily release close to 11,000 inmates. So my population came down from 41,000 to 31,000. So I could have a degree of separation within the prison. Secondly, almost 100% vaccinations.
Okay.
And the entire thing was so very successful that you will not believe me. I believe it was 26 to 28 inmates. Despite getting COVID parole, they refused to leave.
They wanted to stay behind.
They said, food is assured. There is a lockdown outside. Even if I go to my village, I'll find it very difficult to fend for myself. So they preferred to stay in prisons, 26 of them, because they felt it, better being here than going back to their villages. And there were 6 to 7 COVID-related deaths in a population of 31,000.
That is barely anything.
Yes. If you compare this figure with the figure outside.
Yes.
And so that was a very heartening experience.
Wow. We spoke about the prison systems being different in Europe or in most of the Western world and in India. You've also served as part of a special assignment with the UN in Kosovo.
As an international police officer.
So you interacted with the police officers from all over the world and from 38 countries. So what was, I've heard, I don't know if that's true, that we have one of the highest civilian to police ratio than what's recommended. That is the percentage of police officers per 100 members of the public, which makes your job much more difficult. So what are the takeaways that you'd like to take away from your interaction with them, and you hope to bring in the Indian police force?
As far as India is concerned, the sheer workload. See, we are a nation of 140 crore people, and the workload is high, and as a result of it, dependency figure is also very high. But simultaneously, the Indian police, Mumbai police in particular, is known for its detection skills. That is why it's oft said that Mumbai police is second only to Scotland Yard. What it essentially means is the ability of the Mumbai crime branch to solve cases compares with that of Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard is also good, and Mumbai police. And in general, the Indian police is good at solving cases, is my impression.
Absolutely. I've heard that after Scotland Yard, it's the Mumbai police.
And one more point that we discussed there is the role of informants. It has been my observation that, you see so many super cops around. But the real super cop is the guy, the beat guy, because it is he who gets intelligence. Though the senior PI may be taking credit for it, it is the policeman who gets. I'll give an example. That was the very first posting of mine after training. I was the sub-divisional police officer, ASP at Ashtin, a district called Bede. And there came a report on wireless that in a village called Sale Vadgaon, quadruple murder has been reported. 4 members of the same family were bludgeoned to death last night. And I had a writer with me. The person who, writes the diary. He reacted saying, Nakya Atre Patil Ashna. And it was Atre Patil.
So they knew first.
They know. They are ear to the ground. They know people, and their information network is very good. So having reliable informants goes a long way in solving intricate and complex crimes. Simultaneously, in the same breath, of late you can't rely only on human intelligence. Now you have to also use technology extensively. Technology, gazettes, and so these also have been very, very robustly buttressing police efforts in collection of evidences. And things like the analysis of dumb data, tower locations. This also really helps in getting a lot of intelligence. So now it's a combination of both. The reliance on technology for collection of intelligence has really gone up, and it's a welcome thing.
It is. It truly is. We learned a lot about the usage of technology by the police through our conversation today. I had one last question. Now, you cops deal with everything from traffic violations to violent murders to terrorist attacks on our soil. In the midst of all that, how do you maintain your faith in humanity and the goodness of people? Or is it disheartening at times dealing with the underbelly of society? How do you deal with it?
A policeman's job, I always say and maintain this, that an IPS officer's job is very different from that of an IAS. Initially, see, when I got into the service, the first few months were a little disheartening because you get to see the underbelly of the society, and we are associated most of the time with crime, criminals. So not the softer side of life per se.
Yes.
But then somebody has to do it. You have.
It's your duty.
It's a duty, and you voluntarily joined the profession, and it's a great profession, let me tell you. though it's getting a little tough and difficult also. But the police service and the police IPS is a great profession. I would rate it as one of the finest. And given a second choice, I would do this over and over again.
And we forgot to mention about your book, which is how I came in contact with you. Cops in a Quagmire, right? Are you? Now I'm not going to give away the book because the script of the book.
Please don't record here. That there was a very, very large, a huge team of friends, officers, policemen who I tasked with collection of material. Because in normal course, it's very difficult to get, but it was not in my case. So they were very prompt and they collected literature and got it to me. Literature as in cases and all that. And so I must thank them here for being of such great help. So then I wrote it eventually. And getting a publisher is difficult.
It's a very interesting novel. It's very descriptive.
Yeah.
And I've never lived in the hinterlands, but I could visually imagine based on that. And it's quite fascinating.
Thank you.
So, and there's also a Marathi translation of
the
it.
Marathi, the initial draft is ready. So I'm refining it. And hopefully by another 6 months or so, it might see the light of the day.
All right. So we have to thank you for your valuable time.
Pleasure is all mine.
On such an important day, there's an India-Pakistan match going on. So
I don't watch cricket.
Okay, but you know how it is. The whole world is glued. So we have to thank you for taking out time today.
And thanks for the invitation. It was a joy being here.
Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to learn so many things. It was so informative. We have even more respect and admiration for the police force. And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Today we had this very interesting conversation with Sunil Raman, who is the ADGP Planning and Coordination, and also the ADGP Law and Order for the state of Maharashtra. We learned about the new methods used by the police, how he spoke with Naxalites. He was also the Additional Commissioner of Police during 26/11. So if you want to keep watching and hearing most amazing podcasts, if you want to keep watching and hearing such amazing podcast, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow, and we promise to get you more such good content. Thank you so much for watching.